You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
Set 5 years BBY before the Battle of Yavin, Andor is set to tell the story of one of the Rebellion's most pivotal heroes. Not everything is black and white, and over the next 12 episodes, we're going to find that out. This is Making Tracks, Reaction Chats. So, this is episodes 1, 2 and 3 of Andor, and joining me this week to talk about this and discuss basically our first reactions, even though he may have seen it a little bit before you and me, it's Mr. Mark Newbold. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fine, mate. Looking forward to talking about this. I've been itching to talk to people, so now I can splurge it all out now. I can't wait.
Splurge it all out. You can release all that pent-up excitement and everything else. Let's kind of get straight to it then, straight off the bat. We talked about it as soon as it was announced. We were going to get 3 episodes, and we all questioned a little bit why we were getting 3 episodes. It seemed like a huge amount of episodic kind of Star Wars TV to get in one day. What did you make of it? Was it the right thing to do? Was it the right gamble?
Definitely the right gamble. Definitely the right move. I mean, I think when it was originally coming out on the 31st of August, they were going to put 2 episodes out. Moving it back that couple of 3 weeks and putting 3 out makes all the sense, because we know that season 2 is in 3 episode chunks, and it appears from this, and bear in mind I have seen the 4th episode, that the first 3 are a chunk, and that the 4th one is definitely a step away and a move on to another sort of part of the story. So I think it's a very good move. And just from social media today, a lot of people saw it in the States. So people have been talking about that after the embargoes were dropped. I know you and Matt and Claire and a few of the Rebel Legion and UKG and other folks saw it in IMAX last night. So You guys, it's fresh to you. I think it was a good decision. Generally, from what I've seen, the reaction is pretty positive.
Yeah, to be honest, there's some people like myself who would, on a single episode show, like we used to get for The Mandalorian, I could sometimes squeeze that in before work. But I think a lot of people have kind of gone, right, that's it. I'm off of social media for the remainder of the day until I've come back and had a chance to sit down and watch Andor. The screening yesterday started at bang on 7 or just after, and it finished at 9:15. So we're talking pretty much a feature film length kind of first 3 episodes. And that makes perfect sense because, like you said, it kind of sets up that environment and kind of just sets up the tone of what I think we're going to get for the rest of the series, which is kind of fantastic. You know, we've talked about it several times on this show about, is the tone going to be right for Star Wars, and it does take a slight more mature turn. There's some slightly more mature words being used and some slightly more mature actions being done in the bedroom and stuff like that, which, I'm sure there will be some detractors who will probably argue and say, no, Star Wars is a family thing and therefore kind of shouldn't go down that route. But, for me, I thought it was a welcome kind of change of pace. More considered, gritty as hell. Talk about a lived-in universe. Those planets, you could just feel the grime and the sweat. And I think that was the thing is that, those characters and those people who lived on that planet, they were really working for like real meager scraps of money just to kind of make it through day to day.
That was the one thing that really struck me, was just how lived in it felt. Lucas always wanted Star Wars to feel grimy and lived in, and nothing's box fresh unless it's literally coming out of a box. It's lived in, it's rained on, it's gritty, it's grimy. And the worlds that we see, Molana at the very beginning, obviously Ferrix is very much that kind of place. When we go to Canary and see young Cassie and Kassa as a kid, that's as rough and ready, literally as rough and ready. Lord of the Flies, rough and ready as it gets. So all these places that you see, even Coruscant felt oppressive. It felt like it should be raining almost. It had that feel about it. So everywhere, just tonally, just worked so well. And I think that was, obviously every step they make is intentional. I don't think there's much not carefully planned on this, but it just all molds together to sort of put that weight around people's shoulders. You know, we're deep into the Dark Times era here. You know, we're still 5 years away from Scarif and the Avenues you mentioned at the top of the show. So the light at the end of the tunnel is barely a glint at this point. You just start to feel the gears starting to turn, starting on Morlana in the rain, literally in the rain. It had a very Solo feel to me. Going into that, well, it was a brothel, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no bones about it. You know, when he's on Morlana 1, you know, that to me felt, I mean, the whole opening kind of episode really felt very sci-fi, kind of noir, that kind of Blade Runner noir thriller, you know, and the fact that Morlana 1 is run by a corporation, but yeah, you're walking down the streets and you've kind of got these weird kind of bubbles of like people pretty much selling themselves. And I'm pretty sure in one of those bubbles, I saw the next costume that I'm going to do. But at the same time, I think, yeah, you're going into this brothel. It was done really classily.
Yeah.
It felt classy in respects of actually, it didn't feel like seedy. And you kind of had that dancing Twi'lek hologram in the typical kind of slave layer type costume. So it gives you enough of a hint. I think they're walking the line pretty well in this first couple of episodes where they're giving you hints. They're suggesting actually what is behind those closed doors. But, you know, you don't have to see, we don't need to see the graphicness of it to get what is implied. And I think, you know, for the adults and those mature enough will get that. And for the younger audience who are going to watch that, they'll just kind of assume he's in the bar and he starts a fight with 2 security guards, which of course is kind of our first real hint of that brutal streak that Andor has that we then see later in Rogue One. Taking
apart the opening scenes with Jyn and her family as the opening of Rogue One, you're pretty quickly on the Ring of Kafrene with Cassian and Tivik, and that's not a happy ending for Tivik. And in this, he gets into this sort of scuffle, like you say, with those Preoc security guards. One thing I noticed, lots of British regional accents. They've got a very Manchester accent. There's lots of northern accents. There's loads of Scottish accents. You know, it's very, very clear. And I would imagine it goes to Diego Luna using his natural Mexican accent. Clone Wars has done it forever when certain characters are spoken national regional accents. So it makes all the sense, doesn't it? And it works really well.
Yeah, no, I think it really does. I mean, because ultimately, you can't put on like too much of a neutral tone for this. And I think also each planet will have its own accent, will have its own kind of vibe in terms of like the dialect and stuff. So embrace some of these actors. Obviously, I think for some people, and you know, some of the comments I was hearing last night as we came out of this preview screening, I think it kind of polarized a few people. Some people were like, oh yeah, I thought it was really cool. And other people were like, it kind of took me out of it a little bit because, you know, when you hear like a real true kind of Scottish brogue accent of that, you immediately think Highlands, and it emphasizes the kind of environments that they're in. I didn't have a problem with that whatsoever.
No, I think it really added to it. Whereas at one point in time, I might have felt thrown a little bit by that. Now, it just feels, as you say, it just feels, well, if you can hear an accent, an English accent, a clean English accent, or any other accent, good grief, you heard Liam Neeson didn't change a note of his voice playing Qui-Gon Jinn, so clearly Qui-Gon had that Irish roll to his voice, so it makes all the sense. That sequence at the beginning when Cassian gets into a bit of bother and deals with it in the way that he deals with it, I know when I watched it, headphones on, watching it with my email address splurged across the middle of the screen in case I ever took a photograph and shared it, that moment made me literally say, holy I didn't expect him to be quite so forceful in doing what he did.
What surprised me was I thought part of this was we're going to maybe see slightly the journey to how he gets there, but to kind of see him already there, admittedly, hasn't really got a leg to stand on. He's probably not meant to be on Morlana 1. It's always going to be his word against the other guy's word. It doesn't feel like he's has much of an option. And it's also really interesting just to see how that spins out, and you know, the commanding officers' thoughts about it, and kind of like sums it all up saying, well, look, you know, they had a fight after they met in a brothel we were not supposed to have. Takes that pragmatic approach to it.
Brush it under the carpet, but tie off the ends.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, let's just kind of like, let's just put this to bed. But obviously then we see Cyril can't let it lie. And, you know, in some respects, he's younger, slightly more idealistic, brought up within the Empire, and that sense of dogmatic duty means that he can't let it lie. So therefore, we see what happens in the next couple of episodes.
One of the things I liked was that it was in the free trade sector, and they allude to the fact that there's pockets of the galaxy that are run on behalf of the Empire. As we move through it, mix through episodes slightly, but as we move through, you know, you see the Empire come in and take control of this when this situation starts to sort of escalate. I really did like the thought that in that sequence at the beginning, Cassian's looking for his sister, and we do that flashback to his homeworld on Canary, and you see his sister as a kid, and you see the ship come down, and him and the others, make their way towards the ship where everything kind of kicks off. What did you make of those flashback sequences? Because I thought they were very effective.
I think it's good, although being that literal kind of Star Wars fan, which, is relying on I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, kind of felt like we met a slightly older Cassian. So whether or not we're going to flash back even further to kind of really see that initial start of a fight, or was that an initial start of a fight? Because that was pre-Empire times. That was Republic. Fiona Shaw says, the Republic's coming in. They were wearing the Republic logos and stuff like that on the flight suits. And also because, again, it was Republic that was doing all the strip mining in his planet. It wasn't like the Empire came in and obliterated his planet. It seems like it was the Republic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, I'm Dennis Lawson, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Going back and seeing those earlier scenes, he's not from Fest like we learned he was from in Rogue One. Yeah. He's actually from Canary. It all ties into this crash ship and different details. And as you say, seeing a younger Marva and her companion, the pirate guy, and seeing B2 as a not so bashed up droid was really, really cool. But also just makes you wonder where the galaxy was exactly at that point and how far back that was. Another thing that struck me was Cassian, when he's talking to Luthen Rael and saying a lot of stuff, and Luthen's kind of calling him out, and it made me think very much that not everything Cassian says is true. Not everything he refers to, alludes to, claims is actually the rock solid fact. We know he's kind of like a James Bond character. He's a spy you'll send in to do the dirtiest jobs and the roughest missions. And he gets a bit of a conscience in Rogue One, and you see it when he doesn't want to take out Jin's father and moments like that. But generally, he's the right guy for the mission. But some of the things he says, especially in that sequence when the chains or the machinery was coming down from the ceiling on Ferrix, some of the things he says just don't quite stack up. And one of them is the whole impassioned Rogue One speech of, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. And like you say, unless they do go back and show him when he is a little Kassa, which I don't know if they will, it just feels like it's a little mini propaganda thing, isn't it, to make the situation work?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the whole thing is because of where he's come from and, the circumstances that they take him from his home planet, stuff like that, would suggest, he's been told to never really kind of tell people where he's really from, just to kind of protect him and what have you, almost give him like a clean identity and move on from that. Interesting like this, so far we've not seen anything like chain codes or anything like that, so I wonder if that's just doesn't necessarily reach out to all parts of the galaxy, or there's ways that people around him can get around them, stuff like that, or their fate. Interesting. I mean, again, that's kind of like minutiae, but actually, we're picking up on from like Mandalorian and from, Bad Batch and stuff. Nice that they drink calf. Yes. That was one thing that I was pleasantly surprised about. The one thing that I actually found quite distracting as I was watching yesterday was Greeblies and all the props and the set dressing and stuff, the theming. I don't know if it's partly because we're currently in a cycle of having to build stuff for celebrations, so therefore talking about Greeblies most days. There's something about the texture of this show and how tactile everything looked, and it did feel like almost everything had a purpose, and it did feel like you could go into every single drawer and there would be something in there. Admittedly, what's that guy's name who sleeps with Bix? It's
Tim
Russell or something.
Tim.
See, that's not a particularly Star Wars name. It doesn't matter how many M's you put at the end of it. Just Tim. Just don't know if it's because my brother-in-law's called Tim. So Tim's kind of kitchenette, he has these two kind of hexagonal storage containers. Now, those are actually sewing boxes, and Rebel Legion uses those to dress our Tatooine set.
Right.
So I spotted those straight away, and I was like, okay. Now I'm going to have to stick some extra Greeblies on it because I've now got Greeblies. Just something that just made me go, this is a kind of show that is going to need multiple viewings to just be able to kind of take it all in.
Yeah.
A lot of nuance there, and it felt like every character that Andor meets, he has an established relationship with already.
Yes.
There's depth there between like him and Bix, him and his other friends, and I thought that was just really nice. It just felt like everybody actually knew each other in that town. So I think it was a breath of fresh air, really. It does feel like everybody knows Mandalorian as just Mando, but he's walking into all these towns and stuff that he doesn't know. But actually, this is the complete flip side. We're seeing Andor in his his home where he's kind of comfortable. He's not really enjoying it there by any stretch of imagination, but everybody is aware of who he is and he knows everybody else. So I thought that was quite an interesting juxtaposition from what we've seen in pretty much all of the other Star Wars up until this point.
It seemed clear as well that his friends knew him really well, that Bix, as you say, was very conscious of what kind of guy Cassian was and covered for him. And Tim knew of Cassian, but more as a problem than anything else. And Brasso with the alibi. I was at your mother's last night sort of thing. You know, I was with you at your mother's, visiting your mother's, and coming up with excuses on the spot. And it was so quickly done that it was like, that's something they do a lot. And the fact that he was sneaking off planet by taking that ship from the shipyard and just all the little elements that just made you think they know this guy is trouble, but they're all friends. And like you say, it's one thing with Hondo walking into every bar. Everybody knows Hondo. Everybody knows Dr. Aphra. Everybody knows Mandalorian. And that's travelling around the galaxy. There's people who live one street over from me I've never met and never will. So
there's people next door to me I've never met.
Exactly. But exactly. The realms of Star Wars, a village, in the Star Wars world anyway, you kind of expect people to know each other in a village. So I thought that was nicely done. And also, as you said, the immersiveness of Ferrix just felt great. Just the detail, as you say, and you look at it from a different level because, like you just mentioned, you're building these things for the Legion. But, you know, for most people watching, it's just a deep level of detail that we do get in Star Wars. But when we get it done so well, it really does stand out. Cassian and Bix talking, bringing the buyer to the planet, selling the thing that he's stolen from the Imperials, that he's walked through their open door, and that whole speech about, you know, stealing their food and all that sort of stuff. It's quite local to Ferrix. But we know this is going to explode on a galactic scale. Clearly, Cassian doesn't realise this yet. He doesn't know Luthen Rail's actually come for him. He's not come for the peace. He offers him an extra 1,000 credits.
I also wonder, like, what Bix has kind of said to him. He's clearly, like, the part of the box is of some use to him. But I think what he's seeing is that he understands actually it's a raw talent that Andor has. And also, hatred's probably too strong a word, but definitely the dislike for the Empire, just the way he talks and the way he emotes about it. I thought that was quite cool. And also, actually, you know, we're picking this story up almost midway through. I don't even think we need to see how he gets to Box. I'm pretty sure we're going to see him getting other equipment in similar kind of fashions. And it might be like next time battle backfires or something and he gets caught. I think also that relationship's going to be interesting because, like, you can hear Luthen kind of say, you know, lesson 1, make sure that like your exits and your entrances are mined so you can blow everybody up. He's there pretty much as a headhunter, as a talent spotter. He's like, you've got some raw talent. I can mold that into something that I can use if you give me a little bit of time and a little bit of faith and trust that I'm not just going to screw you over. But then I suppose in Cassian's kind of perspective, he has no reason to trust him. He's only going on the word that Bix says that actually this guy's pretty decent and is on the level. But as we see already, he's paranoid. He's thinking about, well, you could just be like an Imperial spy acting as a go-between or another spy and stuff like that. So the writers have done a really good job of just creating questions and potential plot issues going further forward into this series, which it feels like a breath of fresh air.
I mean, there's a parallel there as well. I think when Marva takes him off Canary at the beginning, you know, when he's trashing the ship, having his little Kylo Ren freak out moment, he doesn't really want to go. It's almost against his will, but she's saying he's got to go. They'll kill him if he stays. You know, he won't make it through. So he's already been taken away from somewhere pretty much against his will. And it kind of turned out good because he's lived a life, but he's taken pathways and made choices that have kind of put him in a similar predicament to the point where he's going to question Luthen. He's not going to trust Luthen. You've nailed it with the phrase talent spotter. That's exactly what Luthen is. It's almost like Marvel was the same. She had enough of a sense of this kid that this could go wrong, this could go south. I'm going to take a chance on him. And he's her, essentially, his mother. And we don't see any other parents in the scenes on Canary at the beginning, so we assume the kids have lost their parents. Maybe their society is such that at a certain age the kids are on their own, or I don't know. You know, we don't know yet. There's no way to determine that. But yeah, like you say, clever writing in setting up character traits, I guess, you know, or laying out enough that you think, well, that's why Cassian reacts like that, and that's why he makes the choices that he does. Just stepping back to the inverted commas bad guys, you know, Cyril Khan's pushing. He won't take it from his commanding officer that let's just brush this one under the carpet because that's just not the way he's wired. We go to Coruscant, we see the ISB headquarters, we watch one of their meetings. They've got a very strict, orderly, organised process, and it all seems to be about impressing the guy that's one step up from them to the very, very, very top, to the detriment of realizing that there's the beginnings, the stirrings of organized rebellion. They don't want to hear that. They just want to hit their targets and tick all the boxes. I thought that was absolutely fascinating because that has never really, to this level, I think, been vocalized quite so well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? You know, you're dealing with a corporation. So, you know, for them, any kind of disruption can be a disruption to output. And I think also that just kind of goes to show a different side of the galaxy that, like you said, we've not really seen. You know, it's that real corporate greed that obviously is so prevalent in today's society and something that is very topical in today's society as well. So to kind of like bring that into, you know, the Star Wars conversation, but done in such a way whereby it's not like on the nose per se, but there's layers of it and it's hinting at it, I think is a really good choice. I also like how we haven't seen a Stormtrooper in these first 3 episodes. It would have been very easy for them to just go, we're just going to call the Empire and we're going to come in and do it. But I like how they're trying to manage it themselves. Again, a bit like how some of these big corporations do stuff. They try and keep everything in-house and then, you know, make that appearance on the outside that everything's okay now, we're all fine, how are you? You almost think actually all those kind of security guys are possibly ex-Imperial washouts or something who didn't make it through the academy, especially that officer who clearly played one too many games of Call of Duty. And it's clearly has probably been waiting for 15, 20 years of his career to get that kind of excuse to kind of exert that amount of kind of force and pressure onto one person.
That's a really good point because you do see a lot of people on all sides. In fact, you really do see it on all sides. You see it with the corporate side of it, Cyril Khan's people jockeying for position, trying to get themselves noticed. You're seeing it with the Imperials, the ISB agents. Stay in your lane, do your job, don't step on other people's toes, don't go into that sector because that's his sector and all that stuff. So there's all the positioning there. And now you're starting to see it, certainly moving into episode 3 with Cassian and, spoiler alert, people trying to position themselves. So ultimately, whatever side they're on, they're in the right position and they're the right person to do the right job. But it feels very career minded, which I didn't expect, not across the board like this.
Yeah, it's it's that hedging of the bets, isn't it, really? It's like you're covering your arse and actually not really taking account of anything yourself. You're not going to accept responsibility. There's always going to be somebody you can pass it on to and blame somebody else for. That's a very kind of modern day attitude to have.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
The one thing that really surprised me in a really positive way was the music and the sheer hardcore use of like rock drumming and stuff like that in it. You know, when he's walking through Ferrix, through that kind of scrapyard.
Chopyard at the end, yeah.
You could just, I almost think like the conductor said, yeah, Mr. Drummer, off you go and have some fun. Because it just had that vibe about it. But they did some really clever things, you know, that massive anvil bell, shall we say. It starts off as being like diegetic kind of source in universe music, and then that kind of blends into the actual soundtrack, and then they do that when all the kind of Ferrix resonance are going starting to rattle and hit kind of bits of metal, which is a very kind of like I think South American kind of gang and, you know, Brazilian thing that they do, like when the police arrive and stuff like that. It's that kind of tribal, you know, this is our territory and, you know, the authorities can kind of stay the hell out of it. And again, they kind of did that and they kind of bled that into the soundtrack, and it really heightened up tension. At one point I'm thinking, is Fiona Shaw's character, is she going to die? You know, is this that catalyst? Is that the one thing that now really sets a trajectory? But I think she's got a bigger part to play later on, so I'm really glad that she didn't die.
Yeah, that whole sequence, which kind of ends with the speeder flipping and then the, you know, Luthen and Cassian escaping on the speeder bike, was brilliantly done. Partly because they built that huge set. We had a special episode of Making Tracks with Adria Arjona. We got one question in, and in there she says, you know, this thing's 7 blocks, probably more. It's a huge thing. And you kind of feel that when you're watching it, you know, the scene when Tim gets shot and falls down the steps and she's chained to the door, and you can feel the breadth of the set, that there's more if the camera turns left, whereas quite often you watch a show and you think if the camera turns too far to the left or too far to the right or looks up, you're going to see the lights, or, you know what I mean? It didn't have that. It felt like the cameraman could really... I just think back to Rogue One when Gareth Edwards was shown walking around the set with a shoulder-mounted camera and really wanted that documentary feel. He would dream of a set like this. You know, to really be able to go wherever, and the actors say that. Just the escalating peril. And some people have said online, like you say, it's really slow and there's nothing happening and it takes too long and blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is 12 episodes. And next year you get another 12 episodes and that's it, because you're taking us to Rogue One. But it's not rushing. It's not scurrying to tell a story. It's laying out the characters. Speaking of which, the main characters, Cassian at this point, he's a different guy to the one we know in Rogue One. He's got a purpose in Rogue One. He's trained better in Rogue One. In this, he's a bit of a street rat. There is that kind of Carillion scrum rat feel to him, to my mind anyway. He's scrabbling to get by, but he's got a safe place to fall back, obviously, with Marva and B2. You met B2 last night.
I did.
I've been wanting to talk
awesome
about this droid forever, because seeing him in motion on the screen is just amazing. When you saw still shots, he looks great, but he looks like a stack of boxes. But when he's moving, he's got so much energy. What did you make of him, seeing him up close?
Watching him first get peed on by that ball was...
Yes.
I mean, for those who don't like droids, probably the highlight of the episode, he's kind of got that K2 sass. Is that maybe a little bit too close to the bone, or is this maybe even a modification that Cassian's done to him and therefore would then do to K2? Or maybe actually we find B2 has to get integrated into K2's programming.
Like L3 into the Falcon.
Exactly. He did feel quite sassy in a similar kind of way. Be interesting to see what happens with him, because obviously he's left on planet, but I'm assuming this isn't the only, I hope it isn't going to be the only 3 episodes that we see him in, because I think he's awesome. And also, again, it's that droid that they've kind of hung their hat on, so you'd kind of hope that he's in more than just 3 episodes. The
characters, to a fault, I would say, of the ones we've seen so far, feel more in tune with their work, their location, their job, their mission, than pretty much any other cast of Star Wars characters I can think of. Bix feels like she runs that shop. Tim feels like the slightly jealous boyfriend. There's just so many things about the characters. Brasso is clearly a drinking buddy of Cassian's, and he's got his back. And if there's a bar fight, he's the first one up to stick up for him. We see that him and a couple of the other guys sort of chain that dropship to one of the massive, it's like an old Republic cruiser, that smashes up when that whole scene in episode 3 kicks off. So the people feel really tied to their location. The one person we've seen so far hop locations is Cassian, who still feels like a bit of a lost soul, whether he's on Milana 1 or Canary or Ferrix. He's never quite fit in where he's been. Everybody else feels like they fit.
No, I think you're right. I think everybody does feel like they kind of fit. And I'll tell you one thing actually I thought was really interesting was actually the guerrilla combat almost was natural ability that some of these guys have in Fennec, because everybody had those poignant kind of close-ups at the end of the 3rd episode. Are we seeing the start of a new rebel cell? Are these the guys who then go on and start to help train other rebels, in combat? They had these security guys licked, and not because of they knew the environment, but like you said, about training the ship and all that kind of stuff. All that kind of thing is ingenious, which is guerrilla warfare tactics that you need if you want to overcome overwhelming odds on the battlefield.
Yeah, and it makes sense because, this is set just before Rebels, which is another cell. Yep. And Solo's not that far back down the timeline, really. And you see Enfys Nest and the Cloud Riders, which is kind of another cell. We know we've got the Partisan Rebels of Saw Gerrera coming up, and that's another cell. You do see it all come together, but I've always thought, and it's weird that she's in this, Fiona Shaw, I've always thought if ever they were going to do an older Mon Mothma moving forward down the timeline, she looks so much like Caroline Blakiston that she would have suited that role really, really well. But of course, coming into the show, we know we've got Mon Mothma future episodes, I'll say no more. So I think they've really set the stall out strong. The visuals are fantastic. The sets are amazing. The music, as you've said, was bang on. And the performances are engaging. And just as a whole, as a start, I struggle to think of a show that started quite so well. Mando started fantastically because a lot of action, a lot of info. But tonally, this really worked well.
To be 3 episodes in, there wasn't a big reveal. There, like I said, there's been no Jedi that we're aware of. There's been no Imperial presence per se. I like actually how it's mentioned, the Empire and all that. It's there. It's hanging over everybody's heads, but it's not that so obvious. Like it probably, there'll probably be like hundreds upon thousands of planets across the galaxy that are part of the Empire by either force or by choice, but probably don't have like a literal day-to-day presence just hanging over them, which of course is something that is completely contradictory to what we see pretty much in everything else. You think about when we go to Jeddah and Road One, there's like that Star Destroyer in orbit, not even in orbit, in atmosphere. So I thought that was a really fresh take. And because of that, you get to the end, you have 2 episodes of really setting stuff up, and then you get a climax that actually feels genuine, but also thought out, and not just we need to have a nice bit of excitement because it's a Star Wars and we need a nice big set piece. You know, because to be fair, the speed of blowing up was pretty cool, but it was all that crazy shenanigans that happened in that metal warehouse factory place where Andor is. That was bizarrely so much more impressive than, I mean, I don't even know how you would describe that to somebody. If you're writing a script, how the hell do you try and convey exactly what is going to happen? Because it just felt like complete and utter chaos. From the first fight that he has at the start of episode 1, everything's a little bit frantic. It's super close up. You don't necessarily see it. You know, we're not talking like Bourne Identity, like cuts every kind of like 6 frames or something like that. But it's like, it's still got that visceral kind of feeling that actually this is somebody in peril, you know, fighting for his life. And you kind of see that all the way through these first 3 episodes. So it's just fantastic. So I cannot wait next week in episode 4.
Hi, this is George Mann, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Right, so we are stood in London at the Leicester Square, stood outside the Cineworld Empire, and I'm here with Mr. Booker.
Hello there.
And Clair Henry.
Hello there.
And Sam.
Hello, everybody.
And there's a load of 501st members hugging behind us, but they're too shy to get on mic, so...
Just to elaborate, that's Samantha Alleyne, first female Stormtrooper, not just Sam.
It's all right, we can edit this because we were going to do a nice introduction in the studio. But now we don't need to because Foghorn Sam here has announced to the world exactly who she is. So we're all good. So we have just come out from the preview screening of Andor, and I would love to get some of your thoughts. So, Mr. Booker, what do you make of Andor?
Really enjoyed it. A slow burn, but a really good story building. And we're getting a lot of background on Cassian, which is what we wanted.
Yeah, I'd say so. And how about you, Claire?
So, again, very slow burner. I'm glad they're going to release it with the first 3 episodes. I think if it was to be 1 episode from the very first one, I think you may lose people, but seeing it build up over the 3, I think we're going to get a good feel for what Cassian's about. We've certainly worked out now his motives. It feels to me a bit like Killing Eve, Chernobyl, sort of spy, odd sort of mixture of stuff. So I think it's a good thriller. It's a good thriller. I'm going to say it's very serious, not a laugh a minute at all, but definitely I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall kind of maison scene, the whole kind of texture of the planets that we saw looks really gritty. It's that
Very gritty.
quintessential, lived-in universe and that. And, we met some interesting characters. So, Matt, who was your kind of like standout character from what we saw today?
Cassian completely. Great seeing back. Didn't get enough of him in Rogue One, but got a hint just before he joins the crew to go and do the mission at the end of the film. Him and his bunch of lunks gave us a bit of what they were about, and we're exploring that, and he is just brilliant. The whole ensemble cast, fantastic, and it looks really good as well.
Yeah, I think it does. And what about you, Claire?
For me, I think it's got to be a Killing Eve actress, and I can't remember her name, Fiona Shaw. She's brilliant. She's got
Harry Potter's aunt, yeah?
Harry Potter's aunt to you, Killing Eve to me. Fiona Shaw, she was excellent. I'm not sure how long we'll see her character for, but certainly for me, she was a standout. She just brings, I have to say, the whole cast just brings out a bit of class about it. There's some excellent UK actors in it, and a cameo from somebody that we're trying to work out who it was. You'll see it when you see him on the shuttle. And for me, I just think the whole togetherness of it, it's just got that edge to it for me.
And Sam, what was your kind of favourite moment from the first 3 episodes?
Oh my goodness, that's really hard. It's not necessarily a favourite moment, but firstly, I just want to say I'm really proud of it. But secondly, I just love the feel of it because it's almost, we've never seen this type of Star Wars before. It's not for kids. There's grown-up themes, grown-up venues, shall we say? Grown-up words, yes. Yeah. And I just loved, like I said, that whole direction that he said that was his intention. He wanted to make something different, and he has. And I just love the feel of it. And I just, be prepared for not what you're expecting, and it will get darker and better and amazing. It's amazing. I'm very proud of it.
So how was your experience actually working on Andor then? Like, how was Tony Gilroy as a director when it comes to like his direction?
He's actually not a director. He didn't direct any of the episodes that we were in. He's the exec producer, but they had like blocks, which a lot of series do now. They have blocks of filming. So like one director will do 3 episodes and another director, and they've got some really marvellous young directors who are very talented, who have done some things that, and they've coming up sort of thing. And so it's very hard, I think, when you do that to get like a continuity, the thread. But from what I saw, I think there won't be any problems with that. I think it will seem like a cohesive story all the way through. I'm just so sorry. I'm just really excited. I can't wait for you all to see the rest of it. It's going to be so good.
Okay, so final question before we go home via McDonald's or Burger King. Claire, where does Andor go next?
Well, I'm kind of hoping it's going to build on Catalyst, the book, and I think we're going to see the beginnings, hopefully, of the Death Star and the whole rebellion. I know we've got people coming in who were in Rogue One and Saw Gerrera and stuff, so I feel that we're going to see why Saw Gerrera split, the building up of the Imperials and their Catalyst, and I think I'm hoping it's going to go that direction.
And Matt, what about you? Where do you reckon this story's going to go next?
I think we're going to revisit the town quite a few times, and I think we're going to get some more flashbacks of the flashbacks we've seen in it so far. I think they're going to build on that as well. Where it's going to go, I don't know. We didn't find out the droid who was on the ship that Stellan Skarsgård had, but we heard the voice. So I don't know who that may be. It didn't sound like who I thought it would have been, but we'll wait and see. And it's 2 seasons, isn't it? We've got 2 seasons.
Exactly what I was about to say.
It is 2 seasons, so we're going to build.
We have been told by Tony at Star Wars Celebration that we do start. They, I don't know yet, will start filming season 2 in November. So wherever we get to with this series, I think will just be the start of it.
Yeah.
Because we know that we've got another, and they're putting a lot of stuff into a small space because they're doing it in 5-year blocks or something. So it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of do it, really.
Having visited a load of the filming locations, I'm really looking forward to the Seaside episode. Don't know why, but I went up there and I was like, this is really different. So that episode with the Shore Troopers on the seaside, just north of Blackpool for all you Brits, is going to be brilliant.
I think they did really well with the locations, didn't they? Like we could sort of spot where everything was. But it doesn't come across like that. When you watch it, you're just in Star Wars.
It is just in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it's very different. I love the music as well.
Oh yeah.
The rock guitar and the violins and stuff and the drums, very different, but really built the episodes.
Different.
So what did you think of it? Where do you think it's going to go, Mark?
I have no idea, to be honest. No, absolutely not. I mean, I hate speculating.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Why are you asking us
I know.
to speculate then?
Well, because I'm asking you to speculate, so I don't have to.
Oh no, we're
but
asking you to speculate.
yeah, I mean,
now.
in fairness, I mean, I'm kind of thinking about what we're going to see as some kind of like mentor kind of relationship between Andor and Stellan Skarsgård's kind of character, kind of like develop. This is obviously where he learns how to be like a spy master and kind of learn how all the tricks of a trade and that. And I think we're going to just see how that relationship's going to develop. And I just wonder if there's just going to be some kind of twist Andor ends up being betrayed or betrays somebody else.
Yeah.
And because I think this got a lot of scope to have a lot more kind of intricate and.
Do you want to see the birth of rebellion? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, to be honest, this is a problem, right? We've seen about 4 or 5 different births of different rebellions already, haven't we? And so it'll be interesting just to see how they can start to coalesce and maybe start to pull those together, like, Saw Gerrera's involvement in it and how he kind of like all ties into it. And obviously, we've seen Mon Mothma trailer. We haven't seen her yet. So
will we get a reprisal of Bor Gullet?
See, now that's what we want. We need a Bor Gullet origin story.
It was lovely seeing so many other creatures from the films we've already seen brought into this.
Yeah.
Loads of different species. You're like, oh, there's that one, there's that one.
And I think that's the nice thing is actually, we saw a few kind of like Abonitos and we saw some kind of like, Aki and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's nice that we're starting to not just kind of refer to them as sequel trilogy aliens, but actually just refer to them as just aliens, Star Wars aliens.
I still want to see some OG original trilogy Star Wars aliens, though.
Yeah, give us some green Rodians. Give some green Rodians.
Yeah. Orange Rodians.
Yeah. Rodians, period.
Yeah.
Walrus Man will turn up again.
Yeah,
I reckon.
I reckon so.
We need a Zuvio, is what you actually want to say.
Really?
Yeah.
You think?
Of course you do.
Thanks for listening to Making Tracks. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Fantha Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fanthatracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Temple for composing the Fanthatracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember, tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock UK, 4 PM Eastern, 1 PM Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. And check out our Fantha Tracks Radio Friday night rotation every Friday night at 7 PM UK time for new episodes of The Phantom from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks. And that's me done for this episode.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Desert Planet Discs.